To Hey everyone, we are live from Vive, the ultimate healthcare event, and I'm with UiPath, who are elevating patient experience and more in healthcare. Jason, how are you?
Good, Evan. Nice to see you. Thank you so much for inviting me again on your show.
Thanks for being here. Really excited to dive into all things healthcare, health IT, and more today. Before that, for those who aren't familiar with your work at UiPath, maybe introduce yourself and the team at UiPath.
Happy to. So, what I'm ultimately responsible for at UiPath is healthcare strategy. I've been with UiPath since 2018 when RPA was new in the market, and really healthcare organizations were starting to figure out how to adopt it inside their enterprise. I've been very lucky the last several years to be working with some of the largest health systems in the world, some of the most passionate clinical organizations, as well as all the local HHSs and the the patient-facing organizations that are really improving care and everything in between. And from the larger team here that's advised, really representing the best of our healthcare organization from the people that deliver, you know, the best innovation to healthcare businesses that I've ever seen, and some of our most innovative healthcare engineers who are building really interesting solutions with their healthcare customers today.
A wonderful and important message, and so many challenges in healthcare these days. So, where do you start? How do you begin to help healthcare organizations address the current challenges that you're seeing from the UiPath point of view?
So what's interesting is I would say a few years ago, they didn't know what the challenges were. There's just a lot of problems, right? Could be cost issues, could be staffing issues, patient data issues. They all still exist one way or another. I'd say right now, when we talk to new organizations that want to get into the automation AI world, they're pretty well determined in what they're trying to improve. They're trying to improve costs that they're bearing on the health system, especially in back offices as claims start to improve, or just the large number of clinical denials happen. They're trying to improve their interoperability between the health plans as much as possible. They're trying to bring in more revenue streams with areas like clinical trials and reduce the administrative burden due to that. And then, of course, the clinical workflows and everything that's being done from the moment you set up an appointment or a referral is sent all the way down to the access of your insurance and to your appointment. That whole hospital of the future workflow is what they're focused on, and they're pretty sure what those deterministic points are that they need to improve to achieve that vision.
Fantastic. And there's such a big push to reduce administrative burden in hospitals in particular. How could you
Mhm.
help, whether it's from an RPA standpoint or an agentic AI standpoint? What's the big idea there?
Yeah, it's a great point and something that we're talking a lot about here. You know, automation has been around for a while. We've talked about automation a few times. Normally, you see it in the revenue cycle management department, the back office, supply chain, finance, and then starting to creep into some of the clinical administrative workflows. I would say that's early years of RPA. It's still very vital. I call it practical AI, and it's still required everywhere. I mean, no matter how innovative the health system, there's still a need for practical AI, and it's still an ongoing conversation. Half the conversations I had yesterday, they're like, "I want to use AI for this," and really what they're talking about is automation. So there's still a lot to be done. But then you get into this other area that is intelligent document processing, something we've really mastered. That's where you start to experiment with AI. Can I use AI and automation together to take all those documents that I really don't want to have anymore, that I can't get through API or a fire standard, turn it into a digital asset that I can manage as fast as possible, especially as you're starting to go into these large AI programs. And that's a big opportunity and something we were really positioning well yesterday. We were on stage with Dr. Varga from Mayo. They've been using our intelligent automation program to really automate all the intake of referrals. for their patients with real large success. And, and this isn't even before you start to get into the agentic world, which is the new stuff, right? It's what everyone's talking about is building agents, building agents, building agents. And really what we showcased yesterday, what we're showcasing here is now we can start going into areas that people have already automated, places where they've gotten maybe 50, 60, 70% efficiency, and they want to get that other 30%. And that other 30% is human interaction. So can I now build deterministic agents to work with robots to complete a full end-to-end cycle of authorization? Can I complete a full patient access? Can I now look at payer contracts and pull details from it real time instead of having to load these big databases and then automate off those big databases? So really, the advancements of AI have really brought down that barrier of entry into obtaining AI outcomes, like originally UiPath did for RPA. It democratizes it, lowers the barrier of entry, and now we can have more complete workflows in the hospital system, especially in places like points of care, where we have people that are maybe not clinical in nature interacting with a patient, and they need to have answers, they need to have knowledge, they need to surface information quickly, and most of the time we're getting them like two systems to work on when they have to surface information as the patient have to sit there. So these are places that agents now fill in the void, and it's pretty exciting to a lot of the CIOs we're talking to.
Wow, really exciting. And I love some of the everyday tasks that UiPath helps automate
Mm,
and take the burden off of that frontline staff and doctors and nurses and
yeah.
administrators. Any new anecdotes on how you're helping relieve that real stress and burden and burnout overload that so many practitioners are facing right now?
Yeah, we still see those types of use cases on a daily basis. I mean, we're seeing administrative burden being reduced in areas around clinical and workload baskets or in baskets, especially with EMRs. EMRs have advanced considerably in the last 1 or 2 years. So we're seeing really more of a collaboration of these technologies now. And it's how can I take a workflow or a filter or an AI filter in an EMR and then apply automation to reach out of that EMR and then automate a backend process like patient outreach or patient scheduling or messaging into, a lot of people use my charts for apps. So it's the not how can UiPath be used for the whole end to end. We use the EMR's functionality for the first 60%, UiPath does the 40%, and then we get this beautiful patient experience. So we're seeing that considerably in the healthcare space right now. That's been really fantastic. And there's some unlikely heroes out there. We have scaled a lot around test automation. Test automation has been a big opportunity for us. You wouldn't think test automation improves the provider and the clinician experience, but it does when the system's down a few hours a day. It does when they push a work order and the order doesn't go anywhere and gets stuck in API land. Testing ensures that the lights stay on and that it's business as usual, and we can take care of our patients as expected using the EMR, which is the lifeblood of a patient's journey inside a health system. So we've been doing a lot around automation testing and making sure these EMRs and the services and applications around them are running to max capacity with no surprises.
Fantastic. And tell us more about your customers. I know you work with some of the biggest blue chip names in healthcare, but can you also help smaller, mid-sized clinics or practices kind of streamline operations?
So what's interesting is I would say that automation has been difficult for smaller organizations, not because of the software, not because of the cost. It's because of the focus and the culture of the business. It's hard to pull people together and implement a new software, right? It's a cultural shift. It's a cultural change. Everyone wants to be innovative, and they should spend that time to be innovative. It's just finding the time, the effort, and everyone has all these programs that they're doing that could conflict with a large scale automation program. So really, the smaller organizations tend to shy away from it. But with the advent of now intelligent document processing, we've been working with a lot of acute care organizations, ambulatory clinics that are looking at how can I take all this documentation from very documented paper based and then automate it as quick as possible. Intelligent document processing is not like automation, where automation has to be built. You have to process engineer, you have to transform, you have to implement, and then you have to test. Document automation, I take a document, I train it with an AI quickly, and then I can put automation to it and pretty much put in production almost immediately, get the return almost immediately. And the volumes are massive, right? Again, with Dr. Barger from Mayo yesterday, automating referrals, the intake of referrals. They were spending 3 days in one of their offshore clinics. I'm sorry, onshore clinics, but one of their offshoot clinics that handle one of their specialty divisions, and it's all paper. It, when you're waiting to get an appointment with Mayo Clinic, you normally are sick already. It's a tertiary, so to send a referral, you want to see an answer back right away if you could get an appointment and be seen to start your care. And it was taking an average of 3 to 4 days, because that's how long it took to get through that documentation. It was a small team. Is that automation was unobtainable. It was really difficult. It was fine inside Mayo proper, but some of the smaller hospitals, it's a struggle. So they adopted this intelligent automation, and they stood up the process within a few months, and they reduced that 3 days to 1 day, and people were getting appointments same day. So you can imagine, as a patient who is chronically ill and you want to see a specialist at the top of their charter, and you send a referral to your primary care physician, and now you're on pins and needles waiting 4 or 5 days to get an answer if you can be seen. Being told same day if you can be seen with an appointment is a big difference. And that's really where we've seen the movement, because we're now seeing this with smaller clinics. And now that agents are coming about, which agents are a deterministic way of telling large language models where to go and how to operate, we're going to see even more application into the smaller healthcare organizations that are pretty desperate for innovation now.
Yeah, it's so exciting. And rural organizations who are understaffed to begin with.
Yeah,
And
big
and
time.
lots of organizations are experimenting with AI tools and automation tools, much of them just off the
Hmm.
shelf. You see physicians using ChatGPT. What are some of
Hmm.
the risks with that when it comes to data integrity and compliance and security?
Yeah,
And how do you need to think about a program that protects
yeah.
patient data while providing all of those benefits?
Yeah, so AI security is a big concern for every organization right now. They are using GPT, they are using Copilot. There's nothing wrong with these products. They're designed mainly for consumer interaction, which
Mm,
is why this new form of AI has really grown, is because they didn't start business first, they started consumer first, right? The iPhone wasn't sold to businesses and given to consumers, it was a consumer product, now business people use it. So when you go consumer route, the product grows into the business route. So business leaders are now saying, how do I take this product that was designed for consumers and make it a business application? And it's going to be around data, right? When you use these consumer-based products to do business-based products, the problem is that you're feeding it data that is potentially confidential. It's going into a public space. Um, you could be giving it, incorrect prompts and getting outcomes back that don't necessarily produce what you're looking for. I'm not talking
mm,
about, hey, I want to create a better lecture. I want to create a better document. A lot of that is good for like composing emails and maybe doing surveys or maybe creating artistic design. This stuff is not confidential in any way. But once I start to want to create an appeal letter, once I want to start to create a regulatory report, once I want to start to create a financial perspective, these these things require a lot more defined scope of intent, as well as where it's pulling the data. So, what we would always advertise, or kind of what we also recommend, is this whole concept of trust and AI trust. And for any organization that's looking to bring AI, whether using their own specialized AI, using large language models, or using those large language model partnerships to produce better outcomes in any one of their processes, they should have a trust layer that's in the middle, that's saying who asked, who requested the prompt, what was the prompt, what was the outcome of the prompt, where did the data go once it responded. This is something that we have in our product, and we see that inherently happening now in a lot of other products. But we do it because then we want to build those agents. And this is where I think the recommendation where you're getting at, Evan, is you don't want to use a GPT or a Copilot without having a defined agent that knows what the outcome of the business is going to be. So, we've been talking a lot about agents here, and you hear about agentic design. I'm actually sitting right across from Salesforce right now, and of course, they have Agent Force and they've been positioning. But when you think about large language models, which is the GPTs and all the Anthropics, just it doesn't really matter. The more prompting you give it, the more specific data you give it, the more constraints you put around it, the more deterministic it can get. And then when you give it tools like UiPath orchestration, or maybe an API integration into your favorite ERP, or maybe an integration into your EMR, what happens now is that that big data set that's now reading what you're asking and providing that output is now saying, okay, Jason, you asked me a very specific question. I can now look to see if I have an agent on staff that knows what you're asking. You'll automatically pull that agent out that we built. It will say, okay, under the confines of my job, I'm going to use this data set, not the world of data. I'm going to use this data set. Could be an EMR data, could be an Oracle database, could be SOPs, could be critical documentation. And then it'll say, based off this information, this is the realm of the kind of answers I can give you. And I'm going to use this discrete information that's stored in your knowledge base to produce that answer. And once I give you that answer, if there's an automation that could take a next step, I'm going to recommend that automation. And if you want it, we'll trigger it for you. This is what an agent is. And when you think of it from that perspective, an agent is the far better secure way of managing AI in the future, because you're taking this big concept and giving it a very narrow scope of work. So it's the same thing as employees, right? You don't hire someone that does all the jobs. You hire someone that's specialized in one job. Think of agents like that. And that's really how you're going to control AI in the future.
Wow, fantastic insight. Um, so what advice would you give a healthcare leader who's, considering embarking on a, trial or proof of concept? Maybe they're a little behind the curve and need to play
Mhm.
catch up. Any best practices on getting started and, training and enablement and, building a successful program?
Yeah, so there's two things to look out for. One, knowing what your desired outcome is, and two, understanding all the costs that are associated. More than half of AI projects last year failed. This is a
Mm,
statistic came out of CIO.com that they failed because of those two reasons. One, the outcome, there was no expected outcome. It was like, we were just going to try it and see what happens. So, you have this disconnect of expectation between business leaders, senior leaders, and the people doing the work. And then the second one is hidden costs. They might have stopped and said, hey, this is going to cost us $100,000 to pilot this. And in the end, it cost them $1.5 million. Why? Because they didn't think about all the middle layer technologies they needed to drive the outcome. They didn't think about all the extra staff they needed to hire. They didn't think about the consultants that they didn't think they needed, but actually needed to transform the process. This is something that in automation early years we figured out, right? We're now seeing it again in the AI years, just because the technology itself seems very promising. Again, because we started in the consumer way, right? We think we can apply that to the business way, but it's very costly when you have to transform processes. So I would say always look at those two outside of just making the culture of innovation important to your enterprise. Dr. Barbara, again, yesterday, I saw her, she said something on the stage, which appealed to a lot of people in the audience, is make it a burning platform, right? Make AI, automation, innovation a burning platform in your organization. You don't have to go massive. You don't have to go big. You just have to make it a burning platform, because when you get everyone on the same page that we're doing this, it lowers that barrier of pushback and really improves that outcome. And then you find partners in the business that want to join in, right? We're a great partner to other technology organizations that want to partner as well. So if you make it a burning platform, it just doesn't become a little stroke work science experiment. It becomes something everyone gets behind, and the acceleration's better, the expectation outcomes better. And like I said, you really get a firm understanding what the cost of things are going to be, and then you can try to figure out what that's going to look like over the next 6 to 9 months, if not a year.
Wow, it's quite a mic drop moment there. So you're at Vive, back-to-back meetings all week. So interesting. You got HIMSS coming up in a couple of weeks, so you're at it again. Beyond that, what are you excited about for the rest of 2025 and the mission?
Yeah, this agentic story is really the second coming of UiPath. I'd say it's UiPath 2.0. It really does feel, Evan, like when we were talking in 2018 of introducing automation in healthcare. I see the energy back with the business and in healthcare. I see CIOs that were sort of figuring out what to do next with automation, now getting a set of agents and bringing that into the business. I'm really excited to see a lot of this agentic framework going into healthcare systems and seeing some amazing outcomes. Automation, on the most part, typically is hidden. People don't see it. The improvement is on a report or a spreadsheet. Agents improve people's lives and the way they do work on a daily basis. And some of those stories we talked about before with leasing integration, I'm excited to come back again and talk about real use cases where I've seen significant impacts to health systems using these agents to deliver better care and better experience.
Wow, amazing. Well, on that note, I'll let you back to the grind at Vive. We're all rooting for you as patients and can't wait to see all the outcomes you're enabling. Thanks so much for joining, Jason.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for the time. See you all soon.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening. And